Alright, so you want to build Neuvillete. We are gonna start then with Neuvillete himself, because he has a lot of different teams, and I'll explain those later, but I'll first explain Neuvillete, how you need to build him, because that's the most important, and then you can choose which your teams later. And basically, like, of course, his signature weapon is his best, right? And like any 5 stars that give HP as a subset are also good. But his best free-to-play weapon, a 4-star weapon, except that isn't a battle pass weapon at least, is definitely Prototype Ember that I don't have. Let me go here real quick. That's definitely his best weapon. It's craftable, it's free to play, really good as a for a 4-star for him. And also helps with energy, which is really nice. And I'll explain this later, but you can refine it if you need energy, but you don't have to. When I'm explaining artifacts, I'll explain when you need or when you can refine them and when you don't, okay? But yeah, refining it is definitely an option, it's definitely a good thing to do, but it's not necessary, depending on your artifact subsets. Then that is his weapon, Prototype Ember basically. And then his artifact set is definitely Martius Hunter. It's his best set by fucking far. It is made for him specifically. It's also just one of the best sets in the game. And the subsets you want are very, very simple. It is crit rate and crit damage, and then HP, because his damage scales on HP. All his damage is HP. You can see that here. Charge attack, equitable judgment, 13.45% of max HP. So all of his damage basically scales on max HP. So you want max HP, and then crit damage and crit rate first. So crit damage, crit rate first, and then HP second. You could also have energy recharge, because you do need energy recharge to do his ult, because his skill, like, so basically how he works is you need like orbs to do his special charge attack, and you get those orbs from his skill and from his ult, but because his skill has a long cooldown, longer than you do actually the attack, right? If you want to keep attacking, you need to do his ult. So you need to be able to do his ult whenever you can, whenever you want, every rotation basically, right? And typically you need between 120 and 150% if you don't have his signature weapon or Prototype Ember, the free-to-play weapon that you can build I talked about before. If you do have those weapons or Prototype Ember R5, right, like Refine 5, then you can need between 0% extra energy recharge and 20% extra, so 100 and 120. So 0 extra because you start with 100, or 20% extra, 120, right? Like me, for example, I have 110. I don't even need that 110, but I have it as a subset purely accidentally. So it's nice to have as a substat, but you shouldn't look for it, is what I'm saying. Like, you should only look for crit damage, HP, and crit rate. But if you happen to get energy recharge with your good pieces anyway, then that is nice. And if you have like 120 or 130 from those subsets just purely accidentally, like I have it with damage, like I didn't look for energy recharge, I just have a crit damage circlet, and it happens to have 10% energy recharge, then you don't need to refine your Prototype Ember. But if you don't get to actually like purely coincidentally, or you don't get energy recharge from your subsets, from the pieces you are looking for, then you refine Prototype Ember, okay? So again, very simple, you look for crit damage, HP, and crit rate as your subsets. Energy recharge is nice to have, but you shouldn't look for it. If you get enough energy recharge coincidentally while looking for these other 3 subsets, then you don't have to refine Prototype Ember. If you don't, then you refine Prototype Ember, okay? And as main stats, like, you don't have the choice with Flower and Plume, obviously. But as main stats for your Sands, guaranteed always 100% of the time HP, because he scales on HP. So Sands HP, and then, still same substats, crit damage, crit rate, HP with everything. And then your Goblet is more interesting. You have 2 options. Hydro damage bonus is typically his best option to do, and it will give a little bit more damage than his second best option, which is HP. But if you have better subset on your HP goblet than your hydro damage bonus goblet, because you don't have one with good subset, for example, right? Then go for the HP one. Or if you want to have your force piece sets effect active, but you don't have a good circlet and you want to get a good circlet that you have from a different set, then you can use the circlet from a different set and then have an on-set HP goblet instead, right? Because look, this is an HP goblet on-set is much easier to get than a hydro damage bonus one, right? So that's also a reason why you could use HP goblet instead of a hydro damage goblet. And then your circlet, typically you will want crit damage and crit weight, like most DPSs, right? With a preference for crit damage, because you already get crit weight from your artifact set. You get 30%, 36% just by playing with him, because that's how he works. Like, it just literally made for him, the artifact set. And you will already get crit weight from your subsets in your other pieces. So it's possible you either you have too much crit weight and you go over 100% and then it's wasted, or it's just, like you have more than enough crit weight, like me. Like, I have 70 and I have 77, I think, which is more than enough. So I go for crit damage, everything. Like, if I would go for a crit weight circlet now, I would have, how much is that? I would have 108, and that would be 8% too much crit weight. Plus, I would lose like 60% crit damage. So my Neuvillete would be much worse. You get what I mean? So you go for most of the time crit damage will be preferable and will be better, because you can overcap on crit weight, or because you just have enough and it's better to get the crit damage for it because of that artifact set's 4-piece effect, right? And because of the subset you will get here. But if you have like a really good piece, a crit weight piece like me, wait, let me look for it here, that gives you like 30% crit damage, then yeah, equip it, right? Like, use the crit weight circlets, because it's just so fucking good and it has such good subsets. But most of the time, crit damage will be preferable, so I would recommend going for crit damage. But what you can also do, and it's only a little bit worse than like a crit damage or a crit weight circlet, is HP on your circlet. But if you do go with HP on your circlet, first of all, make sure you have really good substats on it, and second of all, don't go HP on this on the goblet, because having HP on all three really decreases your damage a lot, because it's not worth it after a while anymore, your extra HP, the damage you get from HP. So if you go HP on circlet, go higher damage bonus on goblet. And if you do HP on your goblet, definitely go crit damage or crit weight on your circlet, okay? So that's your artifacts sets. And then your talent is very simple, only your basic attack. I also leveled skill and ult, but those are actually not needed. Like, they don't do that much damage by themselves. Your main damage comes from your charge attack, which is part of your normal attacks, and you level it with this. So definitely your basic attack. Well, definitely only level that. And then teams, because that's basically Neuvillete explained, right? His teams. He has a lot of teams. He can go with a lot of things, and you have like Hyperbloom teams, which are like, Hyperbloom teams are playable with him, and normally Hyperbloom teams are played with mainly with Llama and Nahida, because they are like the best for it, because they have the best Dendo application. But if you don't have those, you can still use like Kole and Yao, although they are less good for it. So you pick Neuvillete, Yao, and then an Electro to trigger the Dendro cores and trigger Hyperbloom. Most of the time you want a fully EM build Raiden Shogun for this, and if you don't have her, the best Hyperbloom Electro Kuki Shinobu, also fully EM.
Wait for my signal.
And then your third member is gonna be an animal character, because of the Descent Venerer set you have. best option is Kazuha, because Kazuha is just the best Anemo support in the game. So Kazuha, and if you don't have Kazuha, like another one like Jean, for example, right? And this will be your Hyper Bloom team then. Actually, I'm gonna go back to this real quick. A really big part in his team building is this passive. And this passive basically says if you have 2 different elements in your team, Neuvillette's basic attack, his charge attack, so his main way of doing damage, does 110% instead of 100%. If you have 3 different elements, it's 125% damage, and if you have 4 different elements in your team, it's 160% of his normal attack damage, right? So that's why a lot of his teams will like focus on trying to get 3 different elements in the team, so that that passive gets as much of an effect as it can, and his basic attacks, his charge attacks do as much damage as possible. An exception to this is double Hydro, so that means you don't get the full bonus, you only get 125% because it is only 3 different elements, right? But people make an exception to this because you get max HP increase by 25% if you have double Hydro, and because Furina is so goddamn good. She's one of the best supports in the game, but she's also the premium support for Neuvillete, his best support there is, and just really good for him. And that's why people still run, Furina, despite that not having fulfilling his passive fully. But I think it is only worth it if you have Furina. If you don't have Furina, none of these can actually do anything, and the only reason you would use them is for the 25% max HP bonus. But that isn't worth it compared to the extra damage you get from your basic attack from having different. So basically only do double Hydro if you have Furina. If you don't, I think you should go 4 different elements in every team. Okay, so yeah, that's an important thing I need to mention. And then, like I was saying before, you have a Hyper Bloom team with him. For example, Yara or Collei or something. Collei is, I think, the best free-to-play one for Hyper Bloom, actually.
Oh yeah, rock on!
There's Collei. So this is an option you can do. Electrocharge team, which is the team I used for the longest of time. Now I did it like this with Furina because I had Furina, right? And then Fischl. But if you don't have Furina, then it's it's best to replace Furina with something else, and you can do a Geo character. So you can use things like Archaic Petra to upgrade your damage, or if you have Xilonen or even Kachina, so you can use the Scroll of Cinder Hero set, for example, because the scroll is really freaking good.
Okay, let's go!
And then you have, 4 different elements. You have Scroll that buffs the damage, VV that buffs the damage, and then Electrocharge, basically. Right, you could also go an Electrocharge or an Electro, so you have a Geo, like Kachina or Zhongli or something. Kachina can do Scroll, but if you don't have Scroll and you want Stone also for Scroll, you can do Zhongli actually. I don't have Zhongli, so pretend Albedo Zhongli, right? With Archaic Petra, and because he has Resistance Shred in his kit, and he has a shield, which is really good, really comfy with Neuvillette, because Neuvillette can get interrupted while he does his attack, and it's really a problem for his DPS, because then he also loses his orbs that he needs to do his charge attack, to do his damage. So it's really comfy, really nice to have, especially for newer players or people who still need to, get a bit used to the combat and to dodging and stuff. So Zhongli is good for that, and it's a different element, and you can do Archaic Petra to buff damage, and then Vivi, an animal character with Vivi like Jean, but best in slot is Kazuha, because Kazuha is the best one. And then an Electro sub DPS like Fischl or Beidou, or Auroron actually. You can also do Auroron. Auroron would be handy if you have already, you know, when you have him already built, because you already have him built. But I think Fischl is the best, to be honest. Fischl is just really good. So I would pick Fischl. And you can do Beidou, but Beidou shines the most in when she's fighting multiple targets, because her ult jumps from enemy to enemy to enemy. So in single target, like Stygian Onslaught, don't pick her. But if you're doing Spiral Abyss, where you have like 41 freaking enemies, like the last one, right? Then Beidou would be really good, because she's good against multiple enemies. But otherwise, Aurora and Fischl, I would pick Fischl. Another thing you can do actually is Neuvillete is really good against multiple enemies. Just like Beidou is really good against multiple enemies. And Venti is really good against multiple enemies, because he can group. So this is a really good team. Like imagine this is Zhongli, right? Really good team, because you can group and do VV, because you damage multiple enemies and because you damage multiple enemies. In Spiral Abysses, where there are a lot of enemies, but only in those. So if there is a Spiral Abyss with a lot of enemies, you can use this team and this will be very effective. Otherwise, don't do that. Do Kazuha. Imagine Jean is Kazuha, and then Fischl or Roll. I would say Fischl.
Behold, the
So that's
Princess Endeavor Talon.
your Electrocharge team. Already said Hyperbloom team. You can also do a Vaporize team. And honestly, just do the same core here of Zhongli and Kazuha, and then instead of Fischl, do something like Xingling, like an off-field sub DPS. In the past, you really only had Xingling. Now you also have Mavuika if you have Mavuika, and now with Durin as well, actually. Durin as well. And then you can Vaporize. Both of them also buff. Yeah, you can Vaporize, you pick one of those, but if you don't have those, and you know the one you're guaranteed to have and is really fucking good, one of the best characters in the game, and still the one with like the best or one of the best pyro application is Xiangling, and then you have a Vaporize team. You can even do something like replacing Zhongli. You should always keep Kazuya, to be honest. Replace it with like Rosaria, for example. And then you can freeze and melt at the same time. So you wait. I don't know where Rosaria is. I don't see her here.
Sooner we're done, the better.
You freeze with Neuvillete, but you also vaporize with Neuvillete when Xiangling hits, and then Xianglings can also melt when it gets frozen. So that's really good combo that can also work. And there's also still 4 different elements, so that's also something you can do. But the most used team with Neuvillete is called Neuvillete Hyper Carry, and it's basically like buffing Neuvillette's personal damage as much as you fucking can. And normally this is like Furina, and then Kazuha. Imagine this is Kazuha and Xilonen.
All right.
Because Xilonen buffs a lot of damage with her kit and with artifact set, Jean with, or Kazuha with his kit and artifact set, and Furina with her kit. But yeah, if you don't have Furina, if you don't have Furina, like I said, you don't go double Hydro and you do something else. But you don't really have a replacement for buffs, really. So I would maybe go...
In the name of the princess.
Wait, I will keep Furina later. Because these two do have replacements. Like, if you don't have Kazuha Jean, but you do have Kazuha, so that's fine. And then Xilonen, if you don't have her, I would probably go with Zhongli again, but I don't have Zhongli, so imagine Albedo once again is Zhongli, because he has Reshret and the Comfy Shield I talked about, right? And then Kazuha, and then because you don't have Furina and there's not really a replacement for Furina, I would just go and choose one of the, just add it with a random 4th slot, because there is not really anything else that can buff, right? Let me think, actually, let me look real quick. I mean, yeah, I guess she can, man, though it's resistance set. No, not well. Mona now. The new Mona could be used. You could use the new Mona, Hexere Mona, but then you need a fourth and another Hexere member. So no, actually you can't use it. Let me see code, but you already have second colors. No. Yeah, not really a placement. So what I would just do then is like you have your still the two characters that buff your damage. Zone neutral resistance and with Archaic Petra 2 actually, I forgot about that, and VV. And then just use a 4 slot whatever you want, if it's just a different element. So Visual, and then you
Behold,
basically have
the
your
Princess
Electrocharge team,
Endeavor Talon.
right? Or Xiangling. And then you have
Just
your
like in
Vaporize
this
team.
year.
So actually a Hypercarry team isn't really possible for you. You basically just make it a Vaporize or Electrocharge team because you don't have Farina, you don't have a third buffer really that isn't a different element, right? So yeah. And the team I recommend, and maybe it's because I always use it, is this.
The threads of your fate lie in my hands.
And this is the one I'm gonna explain how to build as well, because I recommend this team for you specifically. And this is only and this is casual, right? So don't forget that. Okay, then how are you gonna build them? I already explained Zhongli. Visual is also not too complicated. You have two weapons that are really good for Alley Hunter and Stringless. Stringless is particularly good in like Aggravate and Quicken, but you probably don't know what those are. And if you do, then you know Neuvillete is not an Aggravate or Quicken team. So maybe Ali Hunt is a little bit better, but honestly both are fine. You can use both. I use Stringless because I didn't have Ali Hunter before, maybe didn't even exist before, and I also really just like Stringless, and they're both really good. So you can choose between both, Ali Hunter or Stringless. Artifacts is Golden Troop, her best set now, her current best set at least. Well, except maybe Hexer official, but this isn't Hexer official, this is normal official. So Golden Troop, and plus extra good aspect of it, it's in the same artifact domain as Marshy's Hunter, so it's very easy to farm. You're already farming for Neuvillete's artifacts, and then you get Golden Troop at the same time. The main important part of your kit is that you can user burst, because basically, as you can see here, it takes 25 seconds to be able to use a skill, but her skill only lasts also only 10 seconds. But her ultimate re-summons also. It does a little bit of damage and then you do your skill basically again with the ult. Which means if you want to have full uptime, you don't want to be just sitting there for 15 seconds without your skill and so basically doing nothing, you need to be able to use her ult. And then you will either use her ult first and then her skill, or her skill first and then her ult. It doesn't really matter, just that you can use them in a row, so you have like 20 seconds of the 25 seconds actually used, and you only need to wait 5 seconds to use your skill, right? 5 seconds that she doesn't do anything. So it's very important you can use a skill, ult, or burst. That's the most important. So you need to have enough energy recharge to do that. I have 134, that is not enough. I would go for at least 150. And once you have a 150 energy recharge, then you can go oh man, then you can go for her substats, which are crit damage, crit rate, and attack. If you... What I would do is, like, the sense is typically what you go for energy recharge, right? I would first do your other subsets, and if you get enough energy recharge, so you can see I have like energy recharge on everything, because energy recharge is really important. If you get enough energy recharge from your other pieces, then you don't need to build energy recharge on your Sans, and you can go attack, because that makes the damage do more, right? Because she's a sub DPS, and the most important thing is that you use is a burst, but she also does damage off field, so you want to burst the damage as much as possible. That's why you go for crit damage and attack, right? So if you have enough energy recharge from these pieces, then you can do attack here to buffer damage more. If you don't, it's more important that you do energy recharge and you go for energy recharge Sands, okay? You can also just do one energy recharge and then you don't have to care about subsets, energy recharge subsets, and you can just focus on other things. And that is also something you can do. So yeah, crit damage, attack on these two, then energy recharge or attack on this, depending on how many energy recharge you have. Always electro damage bonus on your goblet, and then crit rate or crit damage on your circlet. But most of the time it is preferred to do crit rate, because you know the chance you have enough crit rate from your substats is small. Like here I'm using a crit rate circlet and it's still only 50%. So yeah, most of the time a crit rate circlet will be the best option, and you should pick a crit rate circlet, because there's no way you will have, you need to have a really well built visual with really good substats to have enough crit rate from your substats to justify using a crit damage circlet. Okay, because you know crit rate is definitely what you prefer at first until you have like enough, like around 70, and then you can start building crit damage. But yeah, most people go for a 1-to ratio, which means like double the crit rate and crit damage, which is what I have as well. It's what people typically go for. But your priority is crit rate until you have enough, and then only then your main priority is crit damage. So focus on crit rate first, okay? So that's your artifacts, golden troop, and your talents, just your skill. That's it. Just your skill, nothing else. The burst damage is only for when you pressure burst, not when you re-summon else. It's still skill damage, so you use your skill, okay? And then Kazuha, I already explained this, how you build Kazuha before to you, and like Sifus Moonlight, this is best, but if you don't have it, Iron Sting, which is what you use Iron Sting on him. Artifact set is Venerer, doesn't Venerer. You go for full elemental mastery and a substats energy recharge, so you can do his burst when you want to, because his burst is nice to have and nice to use. But you will mainly be using a skill, so it's not necessary, but still burst whenever you can, so get energy recharge as your substats and elemental mastery as your main stats. I don't have that, but yeah, that means elemental mastery main stat means there, this, right? You can see it, elemental mastery main stat on all of your artifacts, and then elemental mastery as your subset and energy recharge as your substats whenever you can, okay? And then the talents on Kazuha, I don't think you need to upgrade his talents for his buffs. So I would just upgrade his if you want, and I don't even think it's necessary, right? I'm not sure, but I think it isn't necessary. I think his buff is from one of these three. Is you can upgrade his skill and ult a little bit, but like level 6 or 7 or something. But I don't think it's necessary. I don't think you need to level his skills. And then Zhongli I don't have, and I don't really know much about, so I don't really know what you should build on him, but I think he goes on defense or HP. Check his talents, and whatever it is, get a weapon. It would make sense defense, because that's typically what Geo characters do, but I have seen Zhonglis with 50k HP, so it seemed like he was on HP that he scales. So whatever he scales on, find a weapon with that as a subset and it will do fine. Artifact set is Archaic Petra, which is not what I have equipped right now. Yeah, Archaic Petra, you see it here. Also look at the 4-piece set and how you activate it. Like you need to pick up the crystal that you make as well. Like first of all, the crystal needs to be Hydro, then you need to pick it up and then you get extra damage. Remember that, okay? But yeah, that's what Archaic Petra does. That's what you should do on Zhongli. And then whatever his talent is, that if it's one of the 3 talents that increases his resistance shred, upgrade that. If it's one of these talents, again I don't have Zhongli, maybe I should have checked this before I made this for you actually. Upgrade that. If it isn't one of these 3, then don't upgrade any of his skills. Oh yeah, upgrade his skill, because that increases his shield, I think. So upgrade the skill. That's what you should do for Zhongli. Okay, so Zhongli upgrading skill, Archaic Petra's artifact set, and then a weapon that gives whatever his stat is that he needs, HP or defense. Okay, so that's his team. And that's how you should build them, okay? Good luck.